Owning and operating a business is the American dream. That is, until HR issues like payroll and taxes, benefits administration,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Reboot the World Campus Party's first ever digital edition. We are excited to have Bob Waun from Pike Street Properties present today, Urban Airspace and the Future of Drone Delivery. Take it away, Bob.
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, this is very exciting to be with everybody today virtually. This is my first virtual presentation, so bear with me as we do this together here. I wanted to start out today by showing you Pike Street's drone. I have it right here, and showing you what happens when an inexperienced drone pilot pilots a drone too close to a 7-story building while trying to survey a roof. So as we talk about drones, know that this is the very beginning of a new industry. I know there's better pilots out there than myself, so I'm not speaking to you today as a drone expert, but as a real estate guy who's very interested in this technology and how it might help our business now and in the future, and more importantly, how it might evolve what we know as real estate today. So in that matter, tell you a little bit about Pike Street Properties. We're a urban real estate development firm based here in Pontiac, Michigan. We're in the downtown of Pontiac in an old 1800s building today, where a thunderstorm just flew by. Not a good day to be flying drones. And our project here in Pontiac is the downtown walkable area of the city. And we've done everything from loft development here to retail development to the art gallery / offices that we sit in today. We had a wine cellar next door. Very exciting downtown. Our next project was up in Flint, Michigan, the redevelopment of the old DuPont factory next door to Buick City, where the Buick car was made, and the largest factory in the world at one time, which is now just a big flat field that's waiting for its next use. We dealt with environmental issues up there and the challenges of Flint during the Flint water crisis. Our next project was in Lansing, Michigan, was a medical facility where we focused in on looking at the needs of people who were working class and that needed affordable health care, as we think that that's one of the growing needs in America today. We have projects today in Lapeer, Michigan, around military concerns, in Burlington, Vermont, utilizing an opportunity zone in an old historic building, in Miami Beach in the Art Deco area, and downtown Chicago. And we're working on some projects in solar financing as well. So kind of a diverse mix of real estate projects. What hems them all together is that we consider ourselves placemakers. So what we look to do is use place as a way to help answer and solve big problems in society. So without actually having a real place, we have virtual places, which is also a form of real estate. So we're all today in our own physical place, but we're also in a virtual place. And the big question that we have had, certainly since COVID started, was how will that morph things like offices? How will people want to live? Will they want bigger loft apartments now? There was a trend for a long time in moving into smaller places. But now that we're all working from home, do we need more space to get away from the other people in the house? Or do we need communal space with more space? Or do we need communal spaces with less space? So anything to do with place is something that we feel is a real estate matter, whether it's real space or virtual space. So as we think about spaces, we believe that society advances when there's random collisions of diverse people trying to serve a common challenge. So if you look at different places around the world, maybe it's Paris for fashion, or it's North Carolina for furniture, or it's Silicon Valley for technology, or in our hometown here in Detroit for automobiles, and now what we call mobility. Industries seem to develop in places where a lot of people with diverse talents come together to solve the bigger problems of society. So I'm having technical issues. Here we go. Get this right. There we go. Is that better? So we look to create places where people can have these random collisions. And one of those places that changed the world, according to a lot of great books out there, are coffee houses. Most of us grab our cup of coffee without giving a lot of thought to just how important they've been in the world. But a lot of books, again, have toted this idea of coffee houses as being those spaces of random collision where the world was changed by people coming together with diverse thoughts to focus in on problems that they shared in common. And that's how these industries developed in different places. So I invite everybody today to grab a cup of coffee. We've got our Pike Street mugs here. We've got people in Pontiac mugs. Grab a cup of coffee and let's talk about some random ideas and how they might connect in the age of drones. In 2015, I had the good experience of going to Milan to experience the World Expo. That year, the challenge was what each country in the world was doing to use energy to feed a hungry planet. And every country created a pavilion there. There were some very exciting pavilions, like Israel, talking about water conservation and growing things in the desert without water supply. There were countries like France that talked about their different products like wine. There was a whole exhibit around one of my favorite products, which was Nutella and the nutritional values of Nutella. And America had a booth that had many of the challenges and things that we were doing in America that even in America I haven't seen even yet, which the first one was they talked a lot about shipping containers and using them as building blocks around the world. So we came back from the 2015 and built this house in Ferndale, Michigan, using shipping containers, as they really are a functional and plentiful building block. They've got a lot of redeeming qualities. And the other thing that they talked about at the American Pavilion was vertical gardening. I haven't seen much of it in America, but this was actually a wall that actually moved with the sun at the American Pavilion. The other thing was global weirding, where you can debate whether the globe is warming or cooling or whether it's man-made or natural. But one thing that we wouldn't debate just based on facts is that the weather is getting weirder every year. And so the pavilion had a lot of discussion about what America was doing to shore up our coastlines, like in Miami and other cities that are affected by the stranging of our weather patterns. The other thing that was not discussed directly, but was apparent at the American Pavilion, was a public relations problem that America had in 2015, which was our drone activity, specifically using military drones in other countries. And so America's answer to that at the World Expo in 2015 was to talk about drones for good. And they mentioned a lot about drones in agriculture and how we were using drones to fertilize fields, monitor crops, and grow better foodstuffs. And oddly enough, I had talked to many farmers before and after, as I'm here in Michigan, we're the second most diverse agricultural state in the country, and have not found at that time many people using drones. But today there are a lot of drone activity in farm fields around our state and around the country in America today. So the pavilion was right. We are using drones for good. So the question that I had coming out of that was, if the drones are coming, how will they affect America and the real estate market? And one of the things was roof and brick wall surveys using drones. You could go ahead and lease recharging bases for drone delivery on rooftops. The security guards and police forces are now using drones to monitor especially events. That certainly us in the real estate industry are using drones to make better videos and market and storytelling for marketing pieces, and then even repairing buildings and knowing what buildings needed to be fixed using drones. So the big question that came out of this for me was, if we have an age of more drones and the same people or less people, will we need more buildings or less after the age of drones? And how will it affect the market? So one of those things is, what does a drone need? It needs electricity to run. It also needs airspace to move in. So we did a lot of conversations around what is airspace, who owns it, and how is it allocated? And in major urban areas, you hear a lot of talk about urban airspace. In New York City, for instance, a square foot of airspace is worth about $245 per square foot, which is much greater than the average cost of a building here in Pontiac, Michigan today. And so trading in airspaces is actually a market in urban areas like New York, but there's very few dollars being traded in the airspace today. So in anywhere else in the country besides New York, Chicago, and maybe in Miami, you'll see a little bit of this. But if you own a building and it blocks the view of your neighbor's view, there is an airspace quality there that can be traded. And a good example of that would be in downtown Chicago. The University Club of Chicago wanted to build, or their neighbor wanted to build a tall building, which would have view of the water. And so the University Club was able to actually sell their airspace for enough money to totally rehab and revamp the old and historic club there that sits on Michigan Avenue. So a big gain and a big profit to the University Club, while their neighbors got to build a taller building. And this is how that works. One building can actually sell their airspace to another and allow that other building to build a taller building because it's purchased those air rights of the building in front of it or behind it. So kind of an interesting commodity that few people in the real estate industry today actually value when they think about their buildings in anywhere other than these urban areas. So it's a new form of derivative investment in real estate that isn't necessarily new, but it's new since 1946, and I'll dive into that next year. It's because of the Cosby family's chicken farm in 1946 that we even discuss air rights today. The Cosbys had a farm that sat next to a new military airfield. And as the planes were flying in below the 83-foot level, the Cosby chickens got diarrhea and stopped producing eggs. And so the Cosby family was able to sue in Supreme Court and get paid for a taking of their air rights. And this created a whole new, brand new asset class in American real estate and property ownership. Up until then, it went back to English law of a property owner owned everything from heaven to hell from their property lines. So everything all the way up into as far in the sky as heaven might be, and all the way down to the core of the earth was theirs. Today, we know that anything above an 80 to 500 foot level of the tallest structure on your property is the length of your property rights. Anything above that is called common space, and the FAA regulates that. How does this affect drone travel, and why might there be an asset here for all of the younger people on this video cast today that may make you all very, very rich if you get in on the opportunity and we all figure out how to monetize this thing? Well, the baseline of my whole thought on this is a belief that COVID is accelerating the future. Things that back in December I thought were way in the future and weren't really worth giving a lot of brain damage to, things like completely cashless transactions where people would stop using money, have come to pass since March. We're now seeing stores that don't want to see cash. Really a thought that we knew might happen someday is now instant, and it's part of our lives. Virtual meetings like this, even I was able to figure out how to run this streamcast today, which tells you that it's mainstream and happening in real time. Base incomes for society. We're seeing right now many people being paid what Andrew Yang was talking about last fall and everybody thought was a crazy thought, and socialized healthcare. Anybody with COVID is going to get free healthcare. The death of traditional bricks and mortar retail, something that the International Council of Shopping Centers has been talking about as long as I've been a member. And a couple of years ago, they said, oh, bricks and mortar will never go away. We'll always need it. But we're seeing very quickly the bricks and mortar are indeed going away in favor of the Amazon economy. As I sit here and talk to you today, I'm in downtown Pontiac, just a few miles from the former Pontiac Silverdome, where the Detroit Lions used to play. And there's 3.2 million square feet of Amazon fulfillment center being built 24 hours a day around the clock. Just more proof that the future is being accelerated, not just by COVID, but by all the trend lines that happened before it. And yes, drone delivery is really coming, because my friends who get packages from Amazon leave them outside for 24 hours before they touch them. So the idea of something being delivered by that robot isn't so far-fetched after all. This reminds me so much of South Park, and we'll try to play this video for you. Just a quick clip to underscore the craziness of this idea that the people from the future are coming back to take our jobs. Okay. Well, it was kind of a funny video, but not that funny anyway. So the idea, if you watch South Park, was this crazy idea that people from the future are coming back to take our jobs. And the future is coming back and taking our jobs. They're going to be different. Some of the people on this call someday may end up being remote drone pilots delivering packages, or working on those drones, or servicing drone bases where the drones will actually fly from. Again, all crazy thoughts to us today, maybe in 2020, but it's coming at lightning speed to us, especially post-COVID. And we hope people can run drones better than I can run a PowerPoint here. And there we go. So the question as a real estate person is, who will own the flight path? And how do the drones get from that fulfillment center at the Pontiac Silverdome? Today they ride in trucks along roads that are publicly owned for the most part. And we can see pretty clearly who will profit from all those delivery cars driving down the roads. But when there's drones delivering, who will profit, and what happens when you have a bad drone driver like me and they crash into something? So lots of questions that are unanswered today, but one of them is air rights. Is if there were super highways in the sky, much like there's bandwidth for cell towers today that are extremely valuable, you can't see them, they are there and they're traded like licenses. Who will own all these air rights over the urban cities? The most direct path from the fulfillment center to the most active spots of delivery, maybe a hospital where medical supplies are being delivered via drone, maybe big office towers where lunches are coming in from Uber Eats. These are the questions, and who will own those flight paths? Or will they be completely regulated by the FAA? And this brings me to another interesting movie that, if I could show you the clip from, if you haven't seen it, this is proof that fact is stranger than fiction. This is a true story of the Hummingbird Project, where there were two competing hedge fund firms that were trying to build a data highway from Kansas City to the New York Stock Exchange to trade stocks milliseconds faster than each other. And the competing interests were a group that were boring a tunnel under the United States, about 12 foot down through people's property, and they had to buy underground property rights, and the line had to be absolutely straight. The other group was doing it using repeating cell towers, again, in an absolutely straight pattern, and the assemblage were known as easements, and a large amount of money was paid to people with property ownership in the path, people who had no idea they had an asset sitting on their property that was so valuable, because before this pipeline was being bored, it wasn't valuable. And just as air rights are today, unvaluable in many urban places or many places around the United States, I believe someday they'll be very profitable and very valuable to the people who have the right air rights to assemble this superhighway of delivery systems. These are invisible assets. They're controlled by varying different owners. And so the assemblage is going to be a very labor-intensive process of putting together these, unless the FAA just rules that you can fly directly over anybody's house at that 400-foot altitude. The rights would be, I believe, like easements that can be traded by people, and that will be priced differently based on how active the highways are, very much like cell signals are today, and like mineral rights were in the past. Many of the people on this call, I'm told, are not of the age that you may have seen the Beverly Hillbillies, a very funny show where Jeb Clampett was out in his backyard shooting at some prey, and he hit some ground where up from the ground came some bubbling crude. And next thing you knew, old Jeb was a millionaire, moved to Beverly Hills, and had all this money because of the mineral rights on his property. Had he purchased his property without the mineral rights and they had been separated away, somebody else may have had the great benefit of the oil rights under Jeb's land, and he would have never found his way to Beverly Hills. Today, mineral rights, water rights, air rights, naming rights, and all the other easement rights are typically traded with real estate throughout the country. And the big question that we've had is, will they be separated into separate interests that can be traded separately, much as other derivatives markets have been carved up within the investment community? How do you make something really boring more interesting? Talk about how it'll actually affect your life. So is drone delivery so far in the future that we don't believe that it'll actually happen? Absolutely not. Uber Eats, Amazon Prime Air, a company called Flighty, and Google's Wing are already out there delivering packages in places like New Zealand, in Phoenix, that this is actively going on today. The drones typically fly in from the fulfillment center at about a 400-foot level, but then they lower the packages down to their destination, being able to avoid having to buy up those easement rights along the way. The question that you may have is, how do I profit from this? Where's the real estate play here? That's certainly the one we had, was, all of these rooftops along the way. Are they recharging bases? Are they bases for repairs on drones? Are they fulfillment centers in and of themselves? What are the possibilities for these underutilized assets today? Or will they just be mobile, like this one with UPS that's in test right now? How will the drones recharge? And this is where we think there's a great opportunity with solar power today, in that solar power is a fantastic and ready commodity anywhere you can see the sun. And so all these parking lots that look boring and uninteresting, could they become future recharging stations for drones and other uses for the parking lot, at the same time providing shade to the vehicles that are parked inside of them? If anyone's flown into the Philadelphia airport lately, nowhere in America have I seen more solar panels in one spot than as you're landing at the Philadelphia airport. Literally every rooftop, every parking lot appears to be covered in glassy solar panels today. So if you knew the future and what it would hold, and since everybody on this call is significantly younger than me, you have the time to be able to think outside the box and reach farther into what the possibilities may be. And with COVID coming and accelerating things, the upside of this may be that the things that we think are far off may be much closer than anyone would have guessed just a few months ago. Today, air rights outside of the major metropolitan areas around the globe are worthless or not known to have any value at all. I'd call these things penny stocks, and people could be assembling these with a long time horizon as assets for the future. The drones, they're definitely coming. They're here. Again, some of us are flying them unsuccessfully. Other people are using them for very myriad different uses, but it's clear that they are coming, and that they're something that many of us will have it as a common part of our lives, just as quick as the smartphone was adopted as a technology. Owning the flight path of these drones for delivery and recharging is probably just the first of many uses for them, and it could very well make you the next Jeb Clampett. So with that, I'd like to open for any questions.
Hey, Bob, we do have a couple questions from our campuseros. First one would be, do you think urban areas or rural areas will have the drone delivery first?
I think it's a great question. I know that the tests that have happened in rural areas already, and that's probably for a safety concern. The usefulness of drones is probably more likely in urban areas though. So the initial testing, beta testing is happening in rural areas. Certainly easier to assemble the air rights because they're typically larger tracts of land, fewer owners to work within. That may be part of the reason we're seeing the beta tests in rural areas right now.
Great. Another question we have is, do you think that it will be in the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months where drone delivery will now become the norm, similar to how ride sharing when it first started out very slow, and then all of a sudden it went from 0 to 100 almost overnight? Do you see the same thing happening with drone delivery as more and more of the population becomes familiar with using it?
Great question, Donna. We talked about this last fall, and the consensus was that drone delivery, the need for these recharging stations and buying air rights was years into the future, and really wasn't something we needed to concentrate too much energy on. But COVID has changed all that. That the fact that people don't want to touch their Amazon packages, the explosion of DoorDash and Uber Eats, the carry-out world that has just happened to us accelerates it at an unpredictable rate. What felt like crazy talk last fall may be months away. I know that the testing has accelerated. Companies like Amazon and Uber have exponentially more money deployed at drone delivery and drone testing than they did just a few months ago. So that's going to accelerate it, and I think it's unpredictable. But whoever asked that question, I think the answer is we need to jump on it sooner, not later.
Okay. And then one final question that I see here from our campuseros is security issues. So how will these companies that are going to be using drones now on a daily basis be able to make sure they're secure from hackers, from other folks who might be boots on the ground that would try to shoot them down or something? What's going to be the security that's going to be around all of this?
Another great question that is really no definitive answer on. I think you got to look to other technologies that have ramped up in the past to answer that. And the early cars, being from Detroit, we think about the automotive technology, were horribly unsafe and created a lot of accidents that we don't experience today, even at slower speeds. And so being that this technology is being adapted even quicker, we're going to have more issues with security accidents and problems than we would have had this been rolled out in over a longer time frame with less rush to bring it to market. So, again, unpredictable answer of security. Certainly, there's a lot of concerns, and there should be. I know when my little bitty drone fell out of the sky from 7 stories, it smacked down hard and would have really hurt somebody, and it wasn't carrying a package or burrito. So, I think that it's a big concern, and everybody in the industry that I've talked to has noted that. Certainly there was a drone attack in Turkey that was a military drone attack just recently. The bad uses for this technology are plentiful and cause people to worry, but the many good uses for the technology, in my opinion, outweigh the risks of adopting it quickly here. So,
well, let me ask you this. This is a question just for myself. So as automobiles have safety standards and have to adhere to safety standards, will that be the same for drones and delivery in the future?
I'm sure. The problem is regulations usually play catch up on technology. So the technology comes out first. You have your issues, and then just like battery technology for automobiles, the regulations played catch up, and then you get a slowdown in the advancement of the technology when the regulations set in. So, I think that we can expect that just like the adaptation of any new technology, that there will be problems before there's solutions to the problems and regulation to reduce the risks. But, the companies involved that are doing this are certainly robust, conscientious, known. There are startups, it appears, in the drone space, but the big guys are are jumping in, and they're risk adverse, and I think that will mitigate some of the potential larger risks that we would see with the ramp up of this technology. So, flying drones is doing it the way that they are. A lot of advanced technology in these things. Even this little DJI drone that we have, highly advanced piece of equipment for $400. So.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much, Bob. I'm very interested in seeing what the future of drone delivery brings to us. I guess it'll be bringing things right to my door in the future. We appreciate your presentation today, as well as your support of Reboot the World Campus Party's first digital edition. So have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Launch your career at one of Michigan's premier cybersecurity centers. At Eastern Michigan University, nearly 100% of EMU grads land jobs at some of the nation's biggest names in cybersecurity. And here, you can earn your degree online or on campus in one of our flexible bachelor's and master's programs. So what are you waiting for? Get connected to a cybersecurity degree today. Visit emich.edu/cybernow.
Hello, I'm Robert McGee, Executive Director for the Engineering Society of Detroit, and I'm a proud supporter and sponsor of Campus Party Digital Edition. For 125 years, our society has promoted engineering excellence and innovation, from the rise of the auto industry to the fourth industrial revolution we are experiencing today. Through it all, engineering and technology leaders in Michigan, the state that employs more engineers per capita than any other, have been at the center of our progress. This summer, you have the opportunity to get a taste of Campus Party virtual digital experience. And next summer, the live experience will be held in Detroit in the summer of 2021. Michigan is home to 22 colleges and universities with A-Beta engineering programs. We hope you will join us.